Okay, yay.
So we would like to know your name, where you are, your role or position, and why you're here today. You can use the microphone and talk to us in real life, or use the chat if you're more comfortable with the chat.
I'll jump in. My name is Joe Rodriguez. I'm a fifth grade teacher in Los Angeles, California. I'm a tech lead also at the school site. This is my 23rd year as an educator in LA City Schools. And while I am here to learn more about makerspaces, I did a few things in my class around just having students explore and making things. But I really want to get started this year with more hands-on stuff for my kiddos.
Oh, well, welcome and thank you. I'm very excited. LA, I've only been to California one time, but it's beautiful. Irene, are people typing in things?
Not right this second. Who wants to go next? Ljubica, I said when people are talking, if you could mute yourself, because we could hear all your noises.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
We have Amy Storr, one of the EdChange global organizers. Welcome, Amy. I don't think I've been in a session with you yet. It's been a lot of fun. And Ivana from Croatia, math and physics. Wonderful. Welcome. Anyone else want to introduce themselves, either live or on chat? And Tiziana, I think I said that right, maybe not, from Italy. English and German in high school. And Amy is in Texas. All right, so I said I'm in Baltimore. I am a lecturer at Loyola University, Maryland at this point in my life in the educational technology program. I worked with Ljubica in South Carolina up until a year ago when I moved to Baltimore. And that's how we met. And I'm gonna let Ljubica tell you guys what she does.
Okay,
Linda,
good
welcome,
morning.
Linda.
Good morning, my name is Ljubica and I work I'm working in South Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina. I'm a school librarian. And as Irene said, we've worked together for a number of years. And so I'm also an Aquarius. I always like to throw that out. We have a song, not everybody has a song. But I've been working as a librarian for over 10 years. And this is my 3rd year doing makerspaces in my library. All right, ready to move on?
So one thing we're gonna do is not just talk at you on what we did, but we actually wanna engage you. So we're gonna do that through the microphone as well as through the chat. So it's whatever you're most comfortable with. I know some people are just waking up. Some people might just be starting to get ready for bed. We're kind of all over the place. So do what you feel most comfortable. And we're gonna start with why create a makerspace. So go ahead, Ljubica.
I was gonna jump in. I was gonna jump in to kind of get the conversation started. Why create a makerspace? I started creating a makerspace because I had to. My district had a kind of mandate in which they wanted everybody to have makerspaces in their library.
I don't want to
so
scare her, he'll scream.
That was the reason that I had to do a makerspace. So everybody else, if you'll kind of take turns and jump on in.
Well, I haven't really created a makerspace, but I have kind of explored using different things just in the classroom. We tend to have a lot of things laying around from old math programs, especially math manipulatives. And so this year I was doing some kind of NGSS integration with some lessons, and we were looking at how to build networks. So we just got a bunch of yarn and cubes and towers, and the kids were building, just building, based on what they thought. Our kind of focus question was, how does a text get from our house to our friend's house, or a friend on vacation in another country? So yeah, just exploring what we already have and making. We took a bunch of pictures, so I'll share them when we get a chance.
Sounds great, Joe. It's funny you said yarn, and I have like a big thing of yarn and stuff. I did a session earlier today on Flipgrid, on maker spaces and the science of sound, kind of that content focus like you were talking about with math, but with science. And so I have a lot of my maker stuff here at hand because I was making stuff this morning at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Who else? So Linda posted that she'd like to add a makerspace to encourage thinking, building, writing, documentation skills. Good morning, everyone. Does anyone else want to share why create a makerspace? All right, Ljubica, I think we can, well, I'll go into my story. I started Makerspace, well, I started it way long ago before I knew it was Makerspace when my students were just making in my classroom. And then like Ljubica, we were working in the same school in the same district, and the district said everyone needs to do a Makerspace. So it was kind of like our hand was forced at it. And that's kind of how this no space, no time kind of came up on, and it really got to how and why, or why we should do the Makerspace. You know, the district people usually say you need to do a makerspace, but they don't get into the why, the reason behind it. And so that's why we really want to start with this reason. So I'm going to let Ljubica. You're muted.
There, I'm muted now. Boy, it's kind of hard to handle all this technology at one time. One of the things I want to just, before we continue on, is understand that makerspace is a process. And then I'll have to be honest, I wasn't a believer in the beginning. It was something that I had to do. But the more that I've done it and the more often that we do it, the more I understand the importance for children. Because Makerspace really isn't about us, it's about our students. But it's a process. So you know, the first time may not be fabulous and it doesn't have to be elaborate, but you have to have a start. You have to have a start.
So our next prompt is, what is a makerspace? Because this is something that is debated even now, even years after it's kind of been defined. So we want to open it up before we talk about what we think it is. We want to open it up and hear what you all think. So again, mic or chat, what is a makerspace? While we think in chat, I'm going to play one of Ljubica's favorites. So feel free to chat even with the music.
Well, I think with looking at the idea of space, so it's time and space. So allowing for blocks of time to dive deep into you know, an idea. One of the things that I've done with my students and even school is the global cardboard challenge. And so there's a kid out here in LA back like 6 or 7 years ago. It was actually close to our neighborhood school, and he did his name is Kane's Arcade. So he just got a bunch of cardboard and started making an arcade out of it, making games. So I've had the opportunity to take that to my own classroom and then to an after-school program. So we actually got the NPR room, which is like, you know, pretty big. It's like I would say about 4 to 6 classrooms big, and then that open space, and we got over a few weeks a bunch of cardboard, and we made it into a makerspace. We brought in a bunch of tape, and we brought in a bunch of different things to decorate the things that we're making, and it was pretty impressive because we're making robots and all sorts of stuff. So yeah, the makerspace is what we make it, I guess.
I agree. Irene, has anybody typed in any responses?
They sure have. And what I really like, and I know you all that are typing are seeing it, so I'm not going to read every single one. But what I really like is that none of you talked about the stuff. You all talked about what was happening in it. Like Tech Amy said, a place to make, create, problem solve, collaborate, and have fun. Kamal, it's probably Kamal, I'm sorry, said a space to apply problem solving to solve a problem or project they're passionate about. A place is somewhere, a cart or section, thank you, Linda, a cart, we'll talk about that, no space, with materials to create passion projects. So what we have found with this definition of what is a makerspace people who are new to Makerspace, so if you're thinking about bringing this into a school or into a district, the first thing they think about is stuff. Oh, well, I need a 3D printer and a laser cutter and a really high-end computer, and, you know, I need to start becoming a hoarder. And, you know, they don't think about the process and that why, going back to why the Makerspace. So why are you having the Makerspace? What is it really going to do for your school, for your students? Kind of like what you all were saying. So it's the answers you're supplying are top notch.
So now we're going to look at a really great definition. I think having read many definitions of makerspaces, this is a really, I think, concise one. And Irene, I don't know if you can read the whole thing because I've got people blocking my view. So if you can read, oh no, I can read it. Never mind, I can read. Okay. A makerspace is a place where students can gather to create, invent, tinker, explore, and discover using a variety of tools and materials. No two school makerspaces are exactly alike, nor should they be. And I think, having looked at many definitions of makerspaces, this is probably really the best one. It says everything in a nutshell. It's about the students. Your makerspace may not look like my makerspace. Some people have elaborate makerspaces. Some people have no makerspaces. They have what we're going to talk about.
I don't have a space for my makerspace.
Yes, so we don't have a space. All righty. Let's see. I like this. Irene and I were talking about this process, and one of the things I've said in the beginning is having to do makerspaces, being required to do it, it has really become a process. And this PACE is really a really good thing to think about. It's process over product. It's agency over teacher directed work. It really is for the students to do, and they can direct themselves. They can lead themselves. It's choice over following directions. Oftentimes, makerspace is really about letting go of control. And it's experimental mindset over failing. You know, if it doesn't work, go back and figure out how to make it work. And that's something that our kids don't have a lot of, I think it's called grit. You know, if they don't get it, they're done. So, you know, going back and trying it again and figuring out how to make it work. So I just love this PACE idea, and just keeping that in mind as you're creating your makerspaces and working with students in makerspaces.
So we're going to start with too little space. So in developing this one, we wanted to hear from you all and answer any questions you have. So if you do have questions, please pop them in the chat. Feel free to unmute and be like, whoa, wait a minute. Too little space came up because of Ljubica. When a couple years ago, when the district said you all need to do maker spaces. So when I was in the classroom, I did maker activities. I didn't actually have a physical space, but we would do kind of led things. I did a shameless plug for my Science of Sound, and you can kind of see that process that Ljubica was talking about, from where I started with very like, everyone's going to make the same thing, to this is really what you have, you know, here's the general concept, and now you get to make whatever you want kind of process. So Ljubica, I'm going to let you show us your space so we can get an idea of why we started Too Little Space.
Thank you. All right, so this is my library. It is approximately 35 by 25 feet. I'm going to give you a little video. Let me see if I can move everybody around so I can get to my video. There we go. I'm going to
just so you know, Ljubica, we can't see, we only see your one screen, so we can't.
Oh, okay. Well, you guys are all over the place. So, let me see. Can I expand my screen? Did the screen expand for you guys? Did it get bigger?
The video did not.
Okay, then. Well, I'm gonna have to play the video. It won't get bigger. I'm not sure why, but I'll go ahead and play it.
Hit play, and then you should be able to do it.
Okay, I'm gonna give you a virtual tour of my library at Rosewood Elementary School. Okay. So, welcome to Rosewood Elementary School Library.
Ljubica, you need to unmute yourself so we can hear it.
Check in and check out. Right here, there we go. And then in the middle is our picture book area right here. Go straight across and we have 5 tables for students to work at. Right down to there. You go straight ahead. We have a small number of computers. And then we have a sitting area. So we have no additional space. As I swing around and give you a full view, our library is so small that our nonfiction collection, which you'll see, extends into Mr. Brown's office. Say hi, Mr. Brown. Hi. Okay, we're going to walk in Mr. Brown's office. This is our nonfiction collection that goes all the way around. It wraps around into Mr. Brown's office. So when the kids want to check out a 900 book, they have to come into Mr. Brown's office to check out books in the 900 section. In fact, we have 2 shelves in here. So rarely can we get 2 classes in. We do every now and then, but as you see, we have the tables, and then we just have that one space for story time. And that's it. So thank you for touring Rosewood Library. Have a wonderful day. Now let me say that the other significance of the library being so small is that we service anywhere from 420 to 440 students. So it's a small library for a large school population that we have. And the issue became there, as you can clearly see, no space for me to have a maker space. So we had to come up with creative ideas to figure out how we could do the makerspace idea despite not having space. So these are some of the creative things that came about, recognizing that we didn't have space. So my makerspace activities have been a little bit of everywhere. They have been in the library. We have had makerspace activities in the cafeteria. We have had makerspace activities outside. Depending on what we're doing, depending on the number of students who are participating, depending on whether it's going to be something that's going to be messy. We just had to kind of figure out where we could hold that activity so that the kids could have that makerspace experience despite the fact that we don't have space.
And I wanted to interject here. When the district rolled it out, and I worked in the district, that department at the time as a tech coach, what was stated to all those school librarians was, when I come visit, or when the district comes visit, when we come visit, we want to see your makerspace. And there were libraries that were, you think of like a gorgeous library, and our school district, there are 52 schools in this school district. There are schools that have that gorgeous library, that have that separate room that's not really being used, that could become a homemaker room. And then there's Ljubicia's library, where she doesn't even have enough room for really a full class of students. So, putting out a table of junk is not, funny how things can be mandated. Putting out a table of stuff or creating a maker space, she did not have the space, but she and I had to consider when those district people, when those people came through to look for their space, what would they see, and how would she be able to showcase that she's doing this initiative that they're expecting from her without any space, because they didn't have any answers. They just said, well, we want to see it when we walk in. And we wanted to make it authentic and not just like, oh, they're coming today, so here's some stuff, glue it together. And so how do we, we had to really brainstorm that.
All right, I'm going to move on to the next slide.
Can you make it full screen again, please?
Oh, I sure can. I'm sorry.
No, it's good. It pops back and forth sometimes, I've noticed.
Okay, and I can't see what you can see, so I apologize. All right. So as I said, my makerspace was all over the place. And it's funny because the kids were agreeable. If we went outside, they went outside. We went to the cafeteria, they went to the cafeteria. So, but they, we worked where we could.
So we polled some people. We've presented this idea a couple of times, and when pulling it together, we're like, you know, it'd be really awesome if we could show some other maker spaces for people who don't have space, because we know it's happening. We know people don't have space, or if they do have space, they're not willing to just give up a piece of their space, you know, for a makerspace. So how are others doing it within space and just allowing this creation? So this is Jennifer Bond, and she decided, she's a school librarian as well. She moved out of her office. So this is her office space in her library, and she created it as a makerspace. And when she sent me these pictures, she said, please let everyone know this is completely student run. So it's messy, not because I'm messy, but because I refuse to clean it every day. And she said that when she started, she was spending about an hour every afternoon cleaning it up, making sure everything was put back. And a couple weeks in, she said, this is nonsense. Why am I doing this? If they want it messy, then it's going to be messy. If they can't find something, then that's on them. And she now cleans it 3 to 4 times a year. But she said because she stopped cleaning it, the students have really started cleaning it because they get frustrated, they can't find something. They've enacted rules where you have to put things away. They asked to help label things so it was easier to put things away. So they really took charge of that, which was a cool idea. But she stated she wanted a space that if it was messy like this and just a little out of control because of whatever they were making, that she could close the door. And it wasn't, you know, it wasn't impeding in like, you know, when the district people walk through or whomever comes in, it's not just like, oh my goodness, this is a mess, because they don't really understand the process of it.
And I also like how you talked about it's being student run. You know, the students requesting the labeling, the students being responsible for putting things up and organizing it, and that's a key concept in Makerspaces is students having control.
So Christina Holweis sent us pictures of her Makerspaces, a stark contrast to Jennifer Bond's, and she has created her library to be her entire makerspace. So instead of having a specific, okay, here's a bunch of things, she has little containers of stuff in her office, and she has her green screen and her Flipgrid Peapod and all her tables ready to go. So if students come in and say they want to make something, all they have to do is grab the materials they need, and everything else is right there. It's set up for them. And so this was another idea that if you don't really have like Ljubica, she doesn't really have the space. That's an idea to have. The Flipgrid Peapod, in the bottom picture, it's that little tent thing that the students sit in to like record themselves on Flipgrid that's green that they can do green screening with. I don't know what it's really called. I call it a Peapod. I think I'm not sure. And so then, for me, oh no, this is nothing yet. This is the Richland County Public Library in Columbia, South Carolina. They have since completely redone their makerspace, and it's a whole wing. It's gorgeous. They have a children's and an adult section makerspace area. But I was fortunate enough to take students to them when they first started Makerspace back many, many years ago at this point. And their makerspace, they had 2 rooms available for us when we went for the day, and they did it was really good for an introduction for me and to bring back to the school librarians, because they pretty much said, well, these are your materials and this is what you need to create, and didn't like define exactly what that should look like or what else was going on. And I thought it really opened my eyes to like, I think I've been controlling the situation a little too much when I do my activities. So this is my makerspace. I teach, I haven't been in a classroom that's mine for quite a long time. So I've been traveling for the past few years, and my makerspace has become a cart. I'm very sad because I had to give my cart to my brother. So it's a cart now, and boxes of stuff, and I also have access to a 3D printer that literally sits on my desk. And unfortunately, my students don't really have access unless I box it up and bring it with me, which I'm considering doing in the fall. But the maker space, it doesn't even have to be a space. Like someone said in the chat, it could be a cart. And I maker cart. I don't maker space, I maker cart. All right, so we're gonna open it up to you all. So out of those different maker spaces, could you see any of those, depending on your space, in your space? Or what other ideas do you have? And we're gonna do chat as well as microphone. Are there any ideas?
Yeah.
Even
jamming.
the music. That's it.
Yeah, absolutely. No, regarding just the use of space, I mean, one of the things that I'm really good about is making sure that my student tables are all cleared out at the end of the day, and so that we don't leave anything on the tables themselves. So regarding the use of space, it's like that, having a lot of flexibility to move around and to put stuff on top, and be able to clean up and organize that way. I also have some the students have like box or like cubbies that they have, and we can use those pretty big, so we can use those to store things that they can use over and over again. And so I'm trying to get rid of textbooks.
Oh, now one of the things I know with when we do our makerspace is that for that particular week that we're doing makerspace, I allow everything to still be out. So it's not like we do it that day and then I put everything away. So I allow that whole week for students to come in and participate and just have it, the makerspace that week. Any
Oh yeah, so Christiane, I think, Christiane, were you from Germany? I believe you were. You said there is no money. So Ljubica is work on a dime kind of lady, and we presented on No Time, No Space, No Money before, and what happens, and it is in our presentation near the end, if you know how to create a makerspace on a dime, and unfortunately you may start looking like a hoarder. Most of the pictures, and I'm referencing, if you're in the slide deck, slide 31, most of those pictures are my pictures because I work on a dime. I work at the university level and I bring it into my students, and I don't really have a budget for it. So I have them, I do digital. Digital is usually, doesn't cost much unless you buy a platform or have to supply the tech tools. But if you wanted to do like stuff, I go to yard sales and Goodwill and get puzzles that have missing pieces, and you wouldn't even believe what people can make, what the kids make with stuff like this.
Kids are quite creative, and the other thing is, your first makerspace doesn't have to be elaborate. It doesn't have to be expensive, and it could be basic things that you have in your classroom: paper, crayons, glue, string, cardboard. So you don't have to run out and get a 3D printer. And I think that was a big misconception that we have, is that our large tools or sewing machines. Or one of the things when I was reading Makerspaces, having someone come in and teach the kids how to knit and crochet and things like that. And those were resources that I didn't have. So I had to use what I had. And it's amazing the things that you can do with paper, pencil, baking soda, vinegar. We've done projects, science projects, Makerspace related science projects that didn't cost me a ton of money and that were affordable. So, so don't let that be a deterrent if you're thinking that it's going to be too expensive, because it's not.
So, and some of the questions coming into the chat were some of the generic things. So, first of all, with your makerspace, you don't have to have specific items for specific maker. And so there's a couple different, or just to clarify, there are a couple different ways that you can do makerspaces. So you can have arts and crafts type makerspaces. You can have digital, where if you're doing green screen making, or any kind of picture making, we're going to have a digital creation opportunity at the end of this. You can also do robotics. You can do Minecraft. I mean, there's a lot of different what you can do as far as maker spaces. But it's also the materials. So if you're doing something, if you're doing origami, you probably want some type of origami paper or paper cut in the right dimensions for origami if you're going to supply origami. If you're doing more open-ended, where you can just have a bag full of random junk, that students can glue and tape and whatever, create string or bead, then that's, it just depends on what you have, what you are willing to hoard, collect, I like to call it collecting, and then what you want the students to do. We always try to start with what do the students need to be able to do at the end? I mean, is the point that they can bead things? Now, if you're a pre-K teacher and the point is they can bead things, then finding a bunch of random stuff with holes in it that they can actually loop the holes through or the string through is fine, and making necklaces. But if you're in 5th grade, that's probably not one of your standards. So what are they at? What's the content behind it? I dropped in some essentials. Some of the biggest things that you're going to end up supplying are going to be the pieces that allow the adhering, such as glue, tape, pipe cleaners, markers, the consumables. Although, like, you know, and you can use, like, you can get these really cheap. Actually, if you go to like any thrift store, you can probably find ones that are not too terrible smelling. They're much cheaper than the regular store for yarn, but you're going to need things for students to be able to adhere their projects together. Is one of the biggest ones. And Christiane is dropping stuff too. All right, we're going to keep rolling, but keep putting your questions in the chat and asking live. We want to make sure we cover too little time.
All right, too little time. So in addition to space, like everybody else, we all lack time. So how often would you make your makerspace available? We're doing a poll, that's right. Yes, you get to say how often. Would you do it every day? Once a month? All day long? It's up to you. But, you know, think about how often would you like your students to be able to be in a position to create, invent, try, fail, repeat again. How often would you like that to happen? So go ahead and take a moment and take the poll. Irene, are you going to give us a little music while the poll is going on?
I can, but my thing is acting silly right now. Ljubica said, we need to do a poll. I want to do a poll. And I had poll everywhere. I was like, well, I'll do poll everywhere. And
is it not working?
It should be working.
Okay. Can
you stop your share so I can share the poll?
I'll try.
All right, what is happening? Hold on. Poll everywhere, you're not easy. All right, I can't pull up the poll anymore, Ljubica.
That's okay. If folks want to just comment, I see that someone has said they like to do it once a week in open room during recess. So if you want to just type in, or if you want to jump in and just share how often you think you'd like to do your makerspace, the mic is yours.
Yeah, I don't know how to show it because I lost that link. Poll everywhere.
It happens. That's technology.
I know. I need to go to a poll everywhere course.
Someone has coloring maker every day. Okay, so they do theirs every day. Anybody else?
Ah, there we go. There we go. All right.
You got it?
Sorry, friends. I promise.
Oh, did someone say 24/7? Recess Tuesday.
2 lessons.
Wow. All right, I'm gonna move back to our screen.
All right.
You ready?
Stop share. I'm ready for you.
Okay, here we go.
Whew. That was hard.
I know.
I lost my music. There's just too much open. Okay, hold on.
All right. Here we go. All right. So thank you guys for those who participated in the poll, or if you went ahead and responded via chat. So what I discovered and Irene discovered is that I do my makerspace, once again, because of lack of space, I do my makerspace activities based on events. And these are national events, Dr. Seuss Week, some may be school related. We do a combination of Dr. Seuss Week, Science Week. We do Children's National Book Week. We do Computer Science Week. So mine are based on events. And for that entire week, we have the makerspace available for students to come in Each class comes in and participates. So all the classes come in and they get a chance to participate. And then I leave it open during the recess time. And what I discovered this last year is that kids wanted to come in and, you know, make whatever we had available during the recess. I was surprised by that. So I was like, oh, okay, this is pretty cool. So they really wanted to come in on their time, because recess is their time, and continue making. So once again, mine has to be based on events, and it's been really fun trying to create activities surrounding those events.
I'm having trouble too. It's too early in the morning, I think. And it's near the end of the 24 hours. So Kristen Sierra, who's at Baker's Middle School Library, wrote a wonderful article that's referenced there on Makerspaces. And she started with every day during lunch it's open. And I did sleep, Katie, just like 4 hours. But she started every day with Makerspace during lunch. And after a few weeks, she said she was at her limit because she wasn't eating lunch. She was constantly having to help students. Her library was like whirlwind, a mess at the end. It took her half a day to clean up. She said, save your sanity. And she started creating focus days Monday through Thursday. And so she had like Minecraft Mondays and Book Club Tuesdays and Robotics Wednesday, so that on those days, the students could come in and they would just focus on that. So after about a week, a few students emerged as leaders. So then questions, she didn't have to constantly be there to answer questions. She wasn't pulling out, like helping someone with a 3D printer, as well as doing Minecraft, as well as facilitating book club. Like, I mean, she was able to focus as well. And then on Fridays, she opened it up to you could choose. And she said it really helped. She really wanted to have this just continuous thing. She's elementary or middle school, I mean, but she really wanted to have this continuous, you can just come and do, but it was too much for her. And something that we always try to say, Ljubica and I, is do what's within your capacity. So within Ljubica's capacity, when we started, the event makers was really what we did. I think we started with 2. We did 2 the entire year. And that was enough. And then the next year, and we ran them K-5. We didn't just do it with one class. Like, we ran them all 400, 500 students came through and did that Makerspace. And we did, one of the first ones we did was Hour of Code. Yeah. Because I came with this crazy idea and said, what if we beaded our names in binary code and made binary code necklaces, which I have mine from a camp many years ago still that I use as a lanyard. And they said, oh yeah, that would be fun. And I said, yeah. So what if we did it with 250 students all at the same time, and everyone did 1 hour of code beating one time?
It sounds good in theory.
I'll tell you, there were some rock star teachers like showcasing how it worked, which we do have that template. Someone asked about activities. We have that activity ready made for you so you can take and go. So click to the next one. So it's within this capacity. So what I started realizing was within my capacity, like Ljubica was doing an event, and Kristen, it's like her name is not Kira, Kristen Sierra was doing like specific things per day. I really focus on content within my Makerspaces, and although Ljubica and I have done like coding and done Dr. Seuss Week, we've done all these events together. I do things like the science of sound. I do things, Makerspace through, I mean, my Makerspaces are not always arts and crafts and even digital. We do Makerspace sound, where you have to make your own sound. So very different concept. And, I bring in computer science, and the 3D printer is printing a brain, because we do a class on learner theory and student-centered learning and the brain. And so we had a student, one of their projects was to create a brain. They wanted to 3D print a brain, and they had to figure it all out. So it's more of this, I started really understanding that I focus more on content, so it really depends on what, with this time, what you want to do.
Okay, so now we've got another question for you. What are you already doing that could be turned into a Makerspace activity? And that really was what got us started. It's like, okay, well, we have to we have to do computer science week, so we'll make it Makerspace. So I'm sure there's something that you're probably doing in your classroom right now that you can make into a Makerspace activity. So send out via chat, or if you want to jump into the conversation, we'd love to hear your ideas.
Some of you have already said things that you do, so continue that. Oh yeah, electricity and circuits. I love it, Rosina. That's how my Makerspace Science of Sound came about. Not through electricity or circuits, but we were already teaching it and we started creating with it. Oh, music. Oh yeah, Kamal is the science, magnets.
You know, I don't care for science. That's Mrs. Gobby. My assistant does our science. We do science week, and one of our Makerspace activities is science related, and my assistant handles that. Yay, Mrs. Gobby.
So the question is, how can math turn into a Makerspace?
Ooh, there's a lot that you can do with math and Makerspace.
Or a reading assignment. So I can talk reading. Okay, so it depends on how you're thinking what Makerspace is. If you're thinking Makerspace like, oh, here's some yarn kids and here's some like blocks or whatever, and you're gonna make an activity, then you may need to think more outside the box. And I know Ljubica, we're giving, she does, because she's a librarian, she does, we do library week and read across America, the Dr. Seuss,
yeah,
and things like that. In addition to that, you could have the students create, so with first grade, one thing that we did, they had to create their own fairy tales. And in the maker portion, if you will, and it was really the tech portion, but it became a maker portion, the students had to create their character. Some of the students drew it and some actually made like puppets. And then we used Face Talker, which is, or Blabberize or anything where they had to take a picture of it and actually have their character. They then read their story and their character spoke their story. And you might not think, oh, well, that's not really Makerspace. And that's a very like everyone's kind of doing the same type of project, but it's really where you are. You could open that up to where they're not all doing their fairy tales. Like they could be selecting, you could do it at the end of the year where they have to select one of their stories. And so it could still be everyone's using the same technology. I think it depends on the grade level, because with first grade, you have to do, when you pull in that technology, you got to help them a little bit.
I'm going to jump in. I think anything related to a book, you can take something off of a story that you read. We did the superhero paper slide, which I got that idea from Irene. And although every kid, and if you're not familiar with paper slide, it's a really simple kind of non-electronic PowerPoint. But working with the kindergarten teachers, particularly if you're doing something like that, reading with younger kids, some Makerspace activities, that one took a little bit longer. But I think anything based on a book, when you're talking about reading, pulling something out in the book that allow, oh gosh, I can't think of the name of the book, Becoming Naomi Leone. I think a soap Makerspace activity would be fabulous, because in the book, the main character carves using soap, and I thought that was just something cool. So you can take something from a book and make it a Makerspace.
So Rosina brought up a great question. She said that what I was talking about, the Blabberize and the Face Talker, she doesn't see as Makerspace, more of a Web 2.0 tool. So that really brings in, what is Makerspace? I mean, what really is it? And at what point does it blend into that? Does it become that Web 2.0 tool? And what point does it become that Makerspace?
But it's a tool. And the concept of Makerspace is the students having choice. They're having choice to create and ownership. So whether they use it via paper and pencil or glue, or whether they use it using a Web 2.0 tool, it still gives students an opportunity to be creative and have ownership.
I'd like to hear from others of what they think, because Rosie, your question is excellent, because it is people don't know. They're like, Makerspace, oh, I need a bunch of little crafty things and a table. And that's okay. No, Rosina, I love your question because it's what's that makerspace, and then what makes it more of that maker opposed to that web 2.0, and where's that line? There's not really a line. It's like a big blurry, like pixelated thing.
No, I'll jump in. I know this year I participated with a teacher locally. You know, we're about a few cities away, and we did like Google Drawings, and with Google Drawings we would share what we see outside our windows. You know, the world outside our windows. And so that was creating, and was kind of making, and the students were doing everything in a digital space, and we shared like on a wall with Edmodo. So our creations, and the kids gave feedback to each other. So I mean, that's when you're using Web 2.0 tools with student choice instead of like teacher-directed kind of a lesson.
You're on mute.
I know. I keep forgetting. Joe, you bring up a great point too, because I think one of the big things that Ljubica and I have realized over the years, I mean, this has been years in the making, is that it's a process. So if you do an activity, a makerspace activity, and it is more directed by you, it's okay as long as you're recognizing that next time I do this, I'm going to give more choice. Or even if you don't realize and you reflect and you're like, at the end, you look at all the projects, you're like, oh my goodness, we all made the same exact project, just we made 20 duplicates of these cute little bookmarks. How can I open this up where personalities can come through? Because the students really only had choice on what color paper they had. So how can I expand my thinking and not limit the students as much?
And allowing students to have control. That was one of the big things that Irene and I have gone back and forth about, and she has been kind of pro let the kids have choice, and I've been like, no, but it really is. And your life is so much easier. Your life is so much easier if you allow those students to have voice and choices, Irene always says. And you'll be amazed at what they come up with. You will be amazed at, you know, it may not be what you had envisioned or planned or thought that they would create, but they will surprise you with some wonderful things. We've done makerspaces where, yeah, we've had things that have all kind of looked alike, and then we have done, and then she said this is a process, and then we've done makerspaces where the kids have had a choice to kind of create what they wanted to do, and both are good. You know, sometimes you kind of need that more teacher-led makerspace activity, but there's nothing wrong with having the kids having that choice and voice.
You know, I really like the idea that you guys had said around events, because you know, sometimes as teachers, you know, we have teachers that go on field trips. Well, having the field trip come to you, kind of feel like you could spend the whole day participating in an event. Like in the fall, I always do the dot day. So the dot day was Peter Reynolds, and you know, reading the book to the students, and then spending the whole day, you know, creating things, using their creativity and looking at like their voice, and you know, sometimes you're afraid of, well, who's going to walk in and what are they going to see? Well, teachers go out on field trips, and the accountability is still on learning, right? And a lot of interaction and exploring, and you're building in all the little curricular parts.
Yes, and I love this conversation because it's a wonderful segue, because we have some activities, and I'm dropping them in the chat. I was ready for you, Joe. I was like, boom, there they are. Some make and take. And I wanted to say the Dr. Seuss Week Gas Makers is wonderful. It is science, but it is a teacher-led activity, maker activity. And the kids make gas. They think it's hilarious. They make gas. But it is very much teacher-led. It's not, oh, here's a bunch of, you know, like, here's some baking powder and some water, and you know, figure it out. And that's even limiting, because you're already kind of telling them the things. But it's a way for them to explore, and bringing in that reading component, like Rosalina was asking. Yeah, so these are ready. You can do whatever, you know, change them. The Hour of Code Binary Makers is another very led session, because it's kind of and it's definitely, people think, oh, it's because it's that arts and crafts. It's very specific if you want to create the right letters because it's binary code. I mean, you can't just be like, you could make it more difficult for the students, but adults get really frustrated if you don't give them all the coding and everything. And so that can be a very lead. But like the bookmark makers and the green screen makers do not need to be, can easily be more open. And even the other two can easily be more opened. And that's, Ljubica and I were talking about this process the whole time. It is a process. When I started, I always made instruments. I had first graders make instruments. And I talk about this, I gave that Flipgrid link. I talk about it in my Flipgrid link because when I started, we all made shakers. And then I was allowing them to choose different materials to put in their shakers. And then the next year, we all made drums. And then finally the next year, I was like, why am I leading them in what instrument they should make? They really need to make something that makes sound. I was dictating what type of instrument, and then it really opened up where they had to make something that made sound. And that, but it took me years to get there because it was the management, it was the materials, it was how am I going to do this? I mean, it's not, I'm going to wake up one day and just be an amazing, you know, all this choice and my room's going to be gorgeous and clean.
But also what happens is as you continue to do this and working with the students, then the students start to get the hang of it too. And they start to understand their role in the Makerspace process. And so they, you know, start off with, as Irene said, and you know, I did it too, you know, I'm going to lead it. And then they start to take control of the Makerspace process. So it is a process. It's not an overnight success. Some Makerspaces go really well and some not so well, and you learn from that. You take those pieces and you put the things that work really well together and you move on. But it's growth as an educator, but it's also growth for the students because this is a new concept that we're introducing the kids to have that control and that freedom. Because normally, you know, we don't give students that control and freedom in the classroom. So now we're expecting them to come into a whole new space or a whole new situation and be able to kind of self-manage. And so they have to learn the process also. They have to learn the process also.
You know, I was thinking of like STEAM and bringing in the arts integration because we already do a lot of the science, the language arts and the math and then having an arts integration piece. I put in the chat how in my school we have an arts integration teacher come in once a week. And so partnering up instead of stepping back as the classroom teacher, you know, being hands-on and working together, and then doing some making it a maker day, at least once through the arts integration cycle. It's pretty cool.
And Joe, I am a certified pre-K through 12th grade music teacher. So for me, it was always integration. But for my story is I always had the administrator come to me and say, you need to be incorporating science or social studies or math or ELA in your class. And I'm like, you know, I see the kids once a week for 45 minutes and I have to teach them music. Like, so that integration piece definitely had to happen on my end. And that's kind of where we got to with Ljubica.
And let me throw in also, not so much the integration piece, although we've done that with the science part, but the collaboration. If you can collaborate somebody on the Makerspace, that makes your life so much easier. I probably would have done a Makerspace, but my Makerspaces are better because I've worked with Irene and I work with my assistant, and I've had those opportunities to collaborate and learn from others. I've talked to other librarians too, but collaborating with somebody, thinking about your goals, using that kind of PACE acronym to focus on what you want to do is also helpful. Don't try to take the Makerspace on your own if you don't have to, and make it meaningful. So we do try to make it not like Irene says, we're putting a whole bunch of arts and craft things on the table, now you must do something. We do try to have it purposeful with our event Makerspace ideas that we do throughout the year.
So I have a session at 11 and I'm coordinating teams, or 11 our time, so 10 next, very next, and I'm coordinating teams. So I have to pop over, and Ljubica, there's another section in here right at 11.
Mm-hmm. So we need to leave.
Well, we have a couple minutes, but we want to take any questions, any other questions. I'm going to have to pop out in a second.
And now, Irene, you're going to make our PowerPoint available to those?
So I posted in our chat, but it's also on that document that's in the Kiko. If you've gotten into Kiko, we posted all three because we would like you to create. So what we did was we created, I don't know if you said this, Ljubica, we created some, you did?
Nope, go ahead.
Okay, so we made a slideshow of some pictures that are, you know, can be used and spread around. And we want you to kind of do a green screen, but not really, because what we want you to do is take a picture of yourself and put yourself in one of our beach pictures from either Maryland or South Carolina. I think we have New York in there too. Yeah. And then we want you to post it on Twitter. Use ECG Global or EC Global and ECG Maker if you make one, and because we'd love to see what you create.
And we're going to leave you with this fabulous quote. And
go ahead.
Everyone can read, so I'm not going to read it to you. Enjoy the Makerspace, guys. It's a process, and the kids will learn. You will learn. You will, and you'll grow with it. You'll grow with it, and it'll get better with time. We have on here is our contact information. I have a Twitter. I mean, maybe get a Twitter. So I have a Twitter handle. Yes, she made me do that. And as if you know, Irene is very, very, very active on Twitter. But you can reach out to either one of us, and we'll, if you have any further questions, we'll be more than willing to answer them and help you as you continue on your Makerspace journey.
Thank you, everyone. I'm going to leave Ljubica in here to answer any last-minute questions. I'm going to pop out because I got to go to a different room.
Bye.
Bye.
Okay. And now, if you're typing questions, I can't see the questions that are being typed. So if you have any questions that you have to speak, because I don't have the chat version that she had. We were so great that we've answered all your questions, and you are just, you're thrilled about your Makerspaces now. That's what it is. A thumbs up. Okay, if we have no questions, guys, thank you so much for your participation, for your joining our group, and you all have a wonderful day. Okay, bye-bye.
You too, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.